We're talking about fat tire e-bikes that look like moped style and have full suspension, okay? We're going to be talking about the Eohora Grizzly, the Eohora Romeo, the Engway M20, the Juiced Hyper Scrambler 2, the Super 73 RX Brooklyn Edition, the Admotor M65X, and the B Challenger. Okay, and we're going to be talking about each one individually, and then we're going to be talking about them collectively in terms of how they rank, in terms of their motor size, their battery and range, and their price. So let's start with the Admotor M65X. This has a 750 watt motor, which is definitely on the low end in terms of this this video, but it does it has a 960 watt hour battery as well, which also is on the low end. It does have a $23.99 sticker price, which is kind of in the middle. It has 7 pedal assist levels. It has 7 speeds, which is nice. It does have mechanical disc brakes, which I'm not a huge fan of. 180 millimeter rotors. It's got the standard derailleur, the Shimano Altus, which is really basic. It has an ad-shock suspension forks, dual coil rear suspension, and it's 81 pounds. So average price, but kind of low on the frills. Okay. One note, however, I do absolutely love the styling. I love the pinstripes, I love the colors, and I really like the white walls. So big thumbs up on style. Next, we have the Aerial Rider Grizzly, which I haven't ridden, but I've seen a lot of, and I know a number of people that have them, and they're very happy with them. It has a 1,000 watt motor in the back and 1,000 in the front, so a total of 2,000 watts, which is really high on this list. It has 1,820 watt hours, which is pretty significant, right? It has a price tag of $32.99, so it's definitely on the high end. And it has 5 pedal assist levels. The cool thing about the Aerial Rider Grizzly, aside from kind of the styling, and the dual motors, is that it has dual drive. So all wheels spin. Almost every other bike, just the rear spins, right? It does have hydraulic disc brakes, which I'm a fan of, 180 millimeter rotors. It has dual coil rear suspension, the suspension fork. It does have the standard Shimano Altus derailleur, which is kind of weak, but it is what it is. It's 108 pounds, and it goes 36 miles an hour. Okay, next up we have the B Challenger by Be Cool. That's the brand. It has a 750 watt motor, which is pretty low on this list. It has a pretty decent range with 1,440 watt hours. It's just under $2,000, which is pretty average here. It has 5 pedal assist levels. It has suspension forks, hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors. That's nice. Dual coil rear suspension, like most of the other bikes. Shimano Tourney derailleur. It's 90 pounds, so a little bit on the heavier side. Has 7 speeds, and it's at 32 miles per hour. First of all, the styling is badass. I love the seat. I love the frame. I love the look of the gas tank, which is the battery. And I really like that it goes 32 miles an hour. So all in all, cool looking bike, pretty decent price, pretty good range. A little bit low on the power, but otherwise pretty cool. Okay, next up is the Eohora Romeo Pro, which I think looks a lot like a Saran to me. It just looks badass. Has a massive, almost 3,000 watt hour battery, which is just enormous. I mean, you could easily go 50, 60 miles on this. It's $22.99, which is just shocking at how low the price is. Has air valve rear shock, suspension forks, hydraulic disc brakes, 180 millimeter rotors. Has a Shimano 7-speed derailleur. It is heavy though, at 124 pounds, but the battery alone is 27. It goes at a high speed of 37, which is just badass. And I think it's just the coolest looking bike. So I'm a huge fan of this bike. I'd love to test one out. But I just think all in all, compared to the other bikes in this range, I think this is probably the top bike. So you'll see a bit better comparison later. But for now, big fan. Love it. Okay, the Engway M20. It has a 1,000 watt motor, which is pretty nice. It has 2 batteries that total about 1,250 watt hours, which is pretty significant. That's pretty good range. It's definitely on the lowest end here, so it's just under $1,600, which is a great price point. It has suspension forks, hydraulic rear suspension. It does have mechanical disc brakes, which you would imagine. 160 millimeter rotor. 7 speeds, 76 pounds, and it goes 28 miles an hour. So the battery and the motor, pretty decent, especially for $15.99. So I think you're getting a lot of bike here for not a lot of money. Okay, the Juiced Hyper Scrambler 2. It's been out for a couple years now. I have ridden one, so I'll give you my experience in a moment. It has a 1,000 watt motor, which is pretty okay, 2,000 watt hours, a pretty decent battery. It's just under $2,000, which is nice. It has 5 pedal assist levels, suspension forks, rear coil, spring shocks, hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors. It's really heavy at 119 pounds. It does go 30 miles an hour. And I tested one at Electrify Expo in 2022, and I don't know how to explain it, but just it doesn't have that it factor or that wow factor. It kind of feels basic. I don't like the geometry. I don't like the feel of it. I'm not a huge fan, but I think you're getting a lot for your money. So give it a try. If you like the feel of it and you're able to test one, go for it. I mean, great buy for the money. I'm not a huge fan of the styling either, but overall, it's got a nice size battery, decent power, and it's under $2,000. You can't really go wrong. I personally am just not a huge fan. The Super 73 RX Brooklyn. I had the Super 73R for 2 years, basically the same bike, and I've tested the Super 73 RX. It has a pretty poor 750 watt motor with really bad torque. It just doesn't have very good torque at all, especially on the low end. Really small battery at 960 watt hours. I mean, if you're pedaling it, you might be able to get 25 miles, especially if you're on the lighter side, but throttle only, it's more like 22, and towards the end of the battery, it kind of dies down. It's really expensive at just under $3,700, so the biggest price tag on this list. It has 5 pedal assist levels, suspension forks, a single rear coil shock. It has a single speed, so it has no derailleur, which kind of sucks. I mean, you're really just at the mercy of that one gear, which isn't a very high gear. It goes 28 miles an hour. I personally got mine up to 31, and I was at 210 pounds at the time. It's 83 pounds, and yeah, I mean, it's got really cool styling. It has the best brand. They're a huge marketing machine. It's got great appeal visually. It's got great brand recognition, but you're spending a lot of money for not a very big battery and a pretty weak motor, and again, really bad torque. I've tested let's say 50 bikes that would compete with this, and this probably has the worst torque. So all in all, I love the look of the Super 73. It was one of my favorite bikes, but you're just not getting a lot for your money, Okay, the final bike we're going to look at is called the Run HR50. It's a new brand. I've never heard of them. I just found it. It has a 750 watt motor. It has a pretty small battery, 864 watt hours, so definitely the lowest capacity on this list. It's at a cheap $14.99. It does have suspension forks. It has single hydraulic rear spring. It has 7 speeds. It goes 30 miles an hour, 75 pounds, and it has mechanical disc brakes with what looked like 180 millimeter rotors. So I really like the styling of this. I really like the display. It's really hard to tell, but it's got a really cool dynamic color display, really big. And just for the price, you're getting so much for your money. So just something to consider. Here you can see Aerial Rider Grizzly has the biggest motor with 2,000 watts. Eohora Romeo is a little bit behind, as is Engway. And you can see towards the bottom, there are 3 companies that have the exact same motor. Super 73, Ad Motor, B Challenger, and Happy Run. And it's only 750 watts, so those are really weak. Just something to think about. Okay, in terms of price, the Happy Run is the cheapest at $14.99. Engway is pretty close. Then you get up into the $2,000 range, B Challenger, $22.99 Eohora Romeo, and then you look at the 3,000 plus range, Aerial Rider Grizzly and the Super 73 Brooklyn. Aerial Rider Grizzly, you're getting 2 batteries, you're getting 2 motors. It makes sense. Super 73 Brooklyn, you're getting a small battery, a 750 watt. It's just really expensive, and that's just, I think, unnecessary. Okay, in terms of battery, the Eohora Romeo dwarfs everybody else with almost 3,000 watt hours. Juiced Hyper Scrambler 2 and the Aerial Rider Grizzly are not that far behind at the close to 2,000. And then you jump down to Ad Motor, Super 73, and Happy Run, which are around 900. That's just not a lot of range, You're going to get maybe 22, 24 miles, something like that, and you need to pedal. Okay, now we're going to take a look at speed. Eohora Romeo and Aerial Rider Grizzly, definitely on the top of the list at pretty significant speeds. B Challenger's pretty close behind. Juiced and Super 73 are around 30. Super 73 is rated at 28, but I got mine up to 31. And I'm about 210 pounds, so I'm going to give that. And then The other three, regardless of what they say, I'm just basing it on um, specs. They all go about 28, so they're kind of at the bottom. Okay. Then let's take a look at weight. So weight, the Happy Run and the Engway are definitely the lightest, with Ad Motor not that far, and Super 73 not that far behind. And then you start getting up into the 90s and 100s. So B Challenger get kind of heavy. And then you look at like the Eohora Romeo, phenomenal bike, but really freaking heavy. A lot of that one's the battery. Actually, as they get higher, it's the battery. Range and speed. And you can see that the Eohora Romeo, fastest, best range by far. Then you have, in terms of range and speed, the Grizzly. The B Challenger is pretty close. The Juice is pretty close. And then as far as range, you got the Engway. And then Ad Motor and Super 73 about the same. And then the Happy Run. So again, in this one, the Eohora Romeo takes the cake. This one, affordability on the x-axis and power on the y-axis. You can see the Super 73 is the most expensive, and it has the least amount of power. And you can see that the Eohora Romeo is basically the top choice here. So that gets my mark of approval.